If you sign a guy in free agency that's coveted by a lot of teams, newsflash, you're going to slightly overpay. Name me a free agent in Major League Baseball history that's been coveted by multiple teams that's, again, a free agent that didn't feel like a slight overpay.
Name me a house in a neighborhood in which more than one couple wanted to buy it and tell me you're not going to have to overpay to get it. It's that simple.
Yeah.
The fact is, as we always say, when anybody enters free agency, the one thing that you either have to be aware of or you look forward to if you're the player is competition. You get more than one team involved and you push the price tag up, it's going to be lucrative for said player. That's what happens. But you know what? Jim Crane is aggressive, like you said. Jim Crane is not going to lose out because of a couple dollars here or there, and he made sure he got their guy, and I credit him for doing that because he didn't grossly overpay. He just overpaid enough to make sure he won the deal, and that's what he's done in his business career. That's what he's doing in this pseudo role for the Astros.
And let's also remember, this is a franchise that's been to 6 straight ALCSs, 4 World Series. You've won 2 of them. They just set a record for payout for the World Series share. It's only an overpay if you can't afford it. This team is not small market A's. This team is not Tampa.
And
they can afford it. They've made more money than any franchise in the league since 2017
but you didn't,
as far as playoff money.
You also got all that money off the new collective bargaining agreement. You also saved on Correa. You didn't spend hardly any of that money. But I'm saying you saved a ton of money along the way, too, and you still won the World Series to where if you want to spend, if you have to spend, you can spend it, and it's not a big, kick in the bucket for you.
That's partially true, like mostly true. The one caveat to this though is it's not a rollover under the competitive balance test.
But I'm saying overall from year to year, your profits are your profits.
Sure. In terms of what's in Crane's wallet, yes, you're 100% right. They've had some savings along the way. They probably fattened that wallet along the way as well. But in terms of the competitive balance tax, it doesn't have a rollover. The competitive balance tax, the payroll salary, et cetera, is what it is for that current year. But the Astros also have the wiggle room. They also have the space. And if they choose to go over it, they just have to pay the tax, and we're not paying that tax. Jim Crane would have to pay that tax. 1680, you're you're going to slap down Yuli, but yet if he doesn't show up in the playoffs and hit, they don't win the World Series. A lot of Yuli folks are in their feelings today.
No one's slapping him down.
I said that he had one of the worst regular seasons as a first baseman last year, which is 100% true. The Astros tried to fix the first base problem last year. It didn't work out because Trey Mancini was lousy and Michael Brantley got hurt. But the Astros themselves told you yesterday that they had a first base problem last year. How can I tell? Because the Astros just spent $58.5 million trying to fix first base. So, yes, Yuli was great in the postseason. He was clutch. He found the fountain of youth. But, you Yuli loyalist, and look, I love Yuli Gurriel. He's a fan favorite. He's meant so much to the city. He's a big reason you have a pipeline to Cuba. I want Yuli Gurriel back, as a matter of fact. But the whole you're bashing Yuli for being honest, that's not being honest with yourself. The Astros just spent $58.5 million trying to fix a problem at first base.
It's the eye test. If you watch Astros baseball and you consider yourself a fan and a loyal fan that watches a majority of the games, you saw what we saw. We saw a guy that was on the decline in rapid success over and over again, every single game. We were like, come on, Yuli, are you going to snap out of it? We knew the age. We knew the power numbers were way down. We saw the struggles through the first 3.5 months of the season. We saw him find a little bit and then slip down, and a little bit more and then slip down. And no taking anything away from him. In the playoffs, he was huge. He was a major factor why you won the World Series. But to expect that he's going to do that again, take the playoff Yuli and expect, the regular season should be forgotten last year. It's what he did in the playoffs. He'll do that again if you play him at first base the majority of the season. No, he won't. And at a certain point, sometimes you have to intervene where the player won't and admit that you are on the downhill, you're on the downhill slide. You are still going to be in Astros lore, going to be one of the most remembered, loved, favored players in Astros history during this golden era. But guess what? You aren't the player you were when this thing started or when this thing was rolling at full steam. And they had to make a business decision. That's what they did yesterday.
D. Green says, my problem with Abreu is that he's coming off a good year in a contract-ending situation. Will he lose that motivation? Abreu's made $118 million in his career. He was rich far before this contract as well.
This was his first good year. This is not somebody...
He also hasn't won one yet. This is his opportunity to get more juiced up to say, hey, I'm fired up. I got a chance to win one here.
I think there's some valid concerns about Abreu. I would look at the power
here?
and I would look at the age. The contract, I have zero concerns about that.
This wasn't a contract year. This was a.
Well, it was a contract year. I mean,
no. But I'm saying this is not somebody that ramped up his performance only in a contract year and had no track record before that of performing. He was always a guy that drove in a ton of runs, hit for a good average. Obviously, hit for more power in the past. Power dipped, but overall, this was not some sort of contract year inflation where you would expect his numbers to drop off drastically.
Correa was more of a ramped-up contract year, the year that he was, than Abreu was, because Correa couldn't stay healthy, and he struggled, his average, and all of a sudden he went for power numbers, and his average went up, and it was like, you know what, he bet on himself, and he won. But if you look at Abreu's career numbers, and you look at it across the board, he didn't ramp anything up. He declined a little bit on power numbers, which, if that's the argument you're going to make, you could have hurt your negotiations because your power numbers went down. But for your career, your average is right around hovering 300. That is who you are, and that's exactly what they just went out and got.
713-780-ESPN. Let's go out to the HRMP listener line for Michael. Michael, you're in the Hive with the Killer Bees. What's up, Michael?
Yeah, so just looking at quick 2022 numbers, I mean, Abreu's number 4 in hits, and with a 300 average, if he even stays that, I mean, you expect those RBIs to get way higher than what he was at in Chicago. So, I would just look at the delta in RBIs that he's going to contribute to the team and just see if that matters to you on a dollar cost per run.
Yep.
And I'll listen.
Appreciate the call, Michael. One of the arguments against Abreu, I'll listen to the home run stuff, because that's true. I mean, it's tangible. His home runs were cut in half. I'll listen to the numbers against the four-seam fastball is a couple of things that you look at. You have a little bit of worry about when it comes to Jose Abreu. The RBI stuff should be the furthest thing that you think about. RBIs are a dependent variable. What is around you is dictated very much by your RBI total. What lineup you're in obviously has a huge influence. Are the guys getting on base in front of you a huge influence? Anybody who's pointing to the RBI totals for Abreu is silly, and do not listen to them. If they have an honest critique about Abreu, these are the honest critiques. His home run numbers were cut in half. That is fair. He's getting older. That is fair. He also is a little bit slower on fastballs. Okay, those things are fair. I still think he's going to be a very good hitter. I think that those are the concerns you would have for Abreu over the next 3 years, but RBIs should not enter the conversation at all.
I mean, as much as you want to delve into all the analytics and go into the deep dives on all the things, the most important thing you look at is just the fact that in terms of barrel rate and the fact that he is still barreling up baseballs, and like the caller said, in terms of where he sits on the hits in even last season, and the fact that throughout his career he has been a steady, know his zone, disciplined hitter that hits 300 in the middle of this lineup. You're right. From an RBI perspective, that's just basically luck of the draw for who, in a lineup like this, his RBIs should go up simply because there's going to be more ducks on the pond because there's better hitters all throughout this lineup. And also, he should see better pitches to actually barrel up more baseballs because you've got Yordan sitting in the middle of the lineup.
It depends on where he's hitting, though, for that. If he's hitting behind all of those guys, I don't think he's going to get a lot better pitches.
We'll see where he hits in the lineup, but in the middle, but still, from top to bottom, this is a better hitting lineup than the White Sox lineup.
Sure, but if he has Chaz and Maldonado hitting behind him, he's not going to see anything to hit.
All right. I'm just saying overall, because of the fact that this lineup is I think head and shoulders a better hitting lineup than the White Sox lineup, that he should see better pitches, and that, again, from an RBI perspective, there's going to be plenty more guys on base with the amount of just law of everybody's averages.
Keith Law of everybody's averages?
No, not Keith Law.
Yeah, Keith, we'll get into most of this a little bit later, but just so we can tell you what he said so you're not waiting with bated breath. Keith Law said, so is this what happens when you get rid of your successful, respected GM and try to Jerry Jones your way through the offseason? Remember, Keith Law and James Click had a cup of coffee together working at Baseball Prospectus back in the day, so they're boys, they're friends. Don't let yourself not know that. Be educated with that. Signing a 35-year-old first baseman DH to a 3-year deal, even off a year when some signs of age crept into his performance and his batted ball stats is some 1980s George Steinbrenner malarkey, although Yankees were pretty good under Steinbrenner. It's also rather contrary to the way James Click and other execs from the Tampa Bay Rays front office tree try to build their rosters. First base and DH are spots you can easily fill in the lower end of the free agent market or use to accommodate players you already have who might be blocked somewhere else. If you're not signing an elite player, put a pin in that for a moment. You go for a less expensive one and spend that money elsewhere. Keith Law wants the Astros to be Tampa Bay. He wants them to shop at Walmart. He wants them to get true value on all of their players. Look, is Abreu going to be a $20 million player every single year? I would say there's a decent chance that he's not. But it's not going to cost the Astros anything else. They're not going to get a lower left fielder because they spent on Abreu. They're not going to be out of the Justin Verlander market because of what they spent on Jose Abreu. Did Click spend a little bit too much? I wouldn't say he spent too much. I would say he spent a little bit more than what the market would tell you to guarantee he got the player that he wanted. No, the Astros aren't the Tampa Bay Rays. The Astros want to be a dynasty and win multiple titles while Tampa Bay is still searching for their very first one.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, we got Glenn at 12:30, and we got to go to a break. So do you want to get that? You want to get Nick in here before we get out?
Let's go to Nick real quick. 713-780-ESPN. HRP listener line. Nick, you're in the Hive. The Killer Bees. What's up?
Hey, guys, yeah. So, I mean, I guess we're also missing a point is that maybe Abreu is coming here to improve his batting. I mean, think about what the coaching has done from the Astros to all of the hitters we currently have. Maybe he's like, all right, maybe if I go to the Astros, I can get back to where I was with a little bit of help.
Appreciate
the answers offline.
Yeah, appreciate
Thanks,
the call, Nick. I think Abreu is trying to find the best situation for himself in terms of dollars and in terms of winning.
Yep.
Now, could it be a happy coincidence that he gets to work with Alex Cintron and Snitker and become a better hitter? Yeah, I think that both things could happen. I don't think that Abreu is seeking that out in free agency. I think it's a very happy coincidence that's likely to happen.
Well, and I think that, again, I mean, when you're a baseball player or any athlete looking in free agency, the two things that you want to do is maximize how much money you can make and getting into the best situation for you. You look at like what BMAC was saying about what this team's done over the last 6 years and the quality of players and relationships that people talk about from Astros players' perspective, how good of dudes they are and what the locker room's like. And the fact that you got a real good chance to win and you're going to get paid what you were looking for in free agency, why wouldn't you take that deal and go, you know what, Chicago's been great for me, but this is a new opportunity where I can spread my wings and I can be a contributing factor on a team that has a chance to win the World Series the entire duration of this contract.
Yeah, it's a great fit for both sides. 713-780-ESPN. Glenn Davis, the authority of Houston of soccer in this very fine city. He's going to join us 30 minutes until kick of the U.S. men's national team in Iran as the U.S. trying to advance to the knockout stage of the World Cup. It's Killer Bees on ESPN 97.5 and ESPN 92.5.